Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the March Council meeting for Wodonga City Council. I'd like to begin with welcome and acknowledgement of country. Wodonga Council acknowledges Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people as the first inhabitants of the country and as traditional custodians of the land. We respect their ancestors, elders and young people and recognise their continuous connections to lands, waters and communities across the country. Second thing is, happy birthday, Councillor Chamberlain. And welcome back from leave, Councillor Simpendorfer. Are there any requests for leave of absence or requests, not attending by electronic means because we're all here, but any requests for leave of absence into the future? No. Declaration of conflicts of interest. Okay. Moving on to confirmation of minutes from the previous meeting. Do I have a motion, please? Councillor Hall. Seconder. Councillor Chamberlain. Any comments? I put that motion. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Question time. I believe we have two questions. Over to you, Mr. CEO.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We have two questions, one from Council Watch regarding waste enforcement costs, and I'll hand to Mrs. Fleckett, Director of Corporate, to respond to that matter first. Thank you.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor. The first question is, what amount of waste enforcement costs in the current financial year 2023-24 has the Council included in its waste levies charged to residents? The answer, waste enforcement costs are not being recovered through the waste levy being charged to ratepayers. Question 2, what amount of revenue has Council included in the current financial year 2023-24 from waste enforcement actions? Revenue from waste enforcement actions for the financial year to date has been negligible. And question 3, has that revenue been offset in the waste levy or applied to Council's general revenue streams? Any revenue received from waste enforcement actions is included in Council's general revenue and is not offset through the waste levy.
Thank you. And the second question was from Andrew McGady in regards to the special rates and charges scheme for Valley Views Estate. And I'll hand to the Director of Infrastructure, Mr. Schultz, to take that one. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. CEO, and through you, Mr. Mayor. The question from Mr. McCady is, in regard to objections to Council's decision to propose and consider a special rates and special charges scheme for Barranduda Valley Views Estate residents, correspondence provides the opportunity for residents to be heard in regard to their objections. Question 1, why may residents not be heard by the councillors who will actually cast the votes on the proposed item? The response is the public notice issued on the 24th of February 2024 and included in the registered letters dated 22nd of February addressed to each property owner within the Valley Views Estate states that residents can request to be heard. Once we have concluded the submission period later in this week and have a better understanding of who would like to be heard, arrangements will be made and communicated to those residents who have in fact so requested. There is a second question, Mr. Mayor. If the proposal is passed, will the cost of the required infrastructure and services, including second and third order effects, be passed on to all Valley Views Estate residents? The response is the preparation of the development plan includes the preparation of a detailed cost distribution plan, which will see all of the infrastructure costs distributed across the development potential of the estate. These costs will include upgrades to roads, services and other utilities, and the potential provision of open space, drainage basins and the like. These financial contributions are likely only to become payable as and if subdivision of individual properties occur.
Thank you, officers, Mr. CEO. Item number 7 is delegates' reports, of which there are none. We move on to reports for determination. The first report for determination is 8.1, 2024 State Funding Programs, Regional Community Sports Infrastructure Fund. Do I have a motion, please? Councillor Hall, and seconded Councillor Lowe. Councillor Hall.
I'll just move the recommendation, thanks. Look, this is just it's a funding request to support a submission of a grant under the Regional Community Sports and Infrastructure Fund. The Albury Wodonga Cricket Albury Wodonga has pledged to commit $15,000 to the proposed funding application. There is no monies allocated from council. The funding request is for 35, and it's to build a storage facility out at Barranduta Fields, so they can put all the equipment that they need to look after the wicket out there. So I think all in all, it's a good outcome if we do achieve it for the council and for the community and for Cricket Wodonga. So I support this application to go in for applying for funding.
Thank you, Councillor Hall. Councillor Lowe.
Yeah, thank you. We've always said that out at Barranduta Fields, we'd always chase as many community grants and that as we can, and infrastructure grants to help progress Barranduta Fields. And I think this is another example of working with local sporting organisations and teams to come up with solutions to fund Barranduta Fields. You know, there's a lot of falls and against out there, perception-wise, but I think Barranduta Fields is a must for our community to continue down that path. And this is another example where it's $0 to council, but we get an excellent facility out there thanks to the help of Cricket Albury Wodonga. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Lowe. Any other councillors? Councillor Chamberlain.
Yeah, obviously Barranduta Fields, it's going to be will be the number 2 oval that this is appropriate on. Number 1 oval obviously is for a future stage, but it will have a turf wicket. Turf wickets require maintenance. Maintenance for turf wickets requires rollers and other equipment, and that equipment needs to be stored and needs to be safe. I appreciate the fact that Cricket Albury Wodonga have stood up, as they have on a number of grounds around Albury and Wodonga, to maintain those turf wickets. It's a very specialised field, and we do appreciate the fact that they're doing it. The side benefit of this is there is no side cost to the ratepayers of Wodonga. So again, as Councillor Lowe stated, gaining these grants and enabling this equipment to be stored safely and securely is a plus for everyone concerned. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Chamberlain. Other councillors? Councillor Hall to close. Okay, I'll put that motion. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. The next item on the agenda is item 8.2, Draft Albury Wodonga Destination Management Plan 24 to 28. Do I have a motion? Councillor Hall, as recommended?
Yes.
Do I have a seconder? Councillor Lowe. Councillor Hall.
So the purpose of this report is to present the draft Albury-Wodonga Destination Management Plan 24-28 to council and seek endorsement of the draft plan for public exhibition. So this is requiring the council to endorse this plan to go out for 21 days for feedback from our community, and then it will come back up to council for a final consideration. It's an agreement between Albury City and Wodonga that we we work together with our tourism, makes it a lot more affordable, and we can work together with a big overall plan rather than just focus on Wodonga. So yes, I support this going out.
Thank you, Councillor Hall. Councillor Lowe.
I think this is another excellent document that highlights the two cities, one community, and the way that we can work together and strengthen our region. The destination management plan goes through, and it was outsourced to a consultancy firm who highlighted a number of different things in there and a number of different opportunities, and ones that directly relate to Wodonga was Wodonga Creek being an opportunity to enhance that will increase visitor numbers. The Gateway Islands Lakes precinct, and we can only tell by the chrysals on the Murray how good things like this destination management plans are to help facilitate that event attraction and management on that too. From all reports, I know it's a little bit of a side note, but again, another well-run, well-reserved and well-patronaged event by the chrysalers. One thing I note in the plan is the average nightly rate was stated as 2.5 nights. That's actually an increase in 1.5 from some old data that I pulled up out of an old destination management plan. So that's a good sign for, especially coming out of COVID when people are travelling again. It's another good indication why we need plans like this. So if we're going to attract more people, we need to be prepared. I'll be supporting it going out to the draft. I normally don't like talking too much to drafts before they've been put out to the public, because I think it's very important to hear their feedback before we go influencing in any way. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Lowe. Other councillors? Councillor Hall, to close.
Yeah, just a note that in 2022, Albury-Wodonga Visitor Economy Trends report articulates that tourism contributed to 1.157 billion to our local economy, which is an increase of 96% from 2021. So, it's really important. It adds, it adds an income to our communities and our retail and all our businesses. And I think having a management plan that promotes tourism and what have you is very important. So, yes, I just support this going forward.
Thank you. I put that. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. The next item on the agenda is 8.3, review of instruments of delegation. Do I have a motion, please? Councillor Hall.
Now, oh, sorry. Yes, I move it. Oh, okay. Yeah. I move the recommended motion, but I just would like to add, it's very long motion, so I'll just add in the pieces that will add to the recommendation. So, one, and I'll add into one, and with the exception that the power to approve a development plan is not delegated in 1.1, and in 2.1 of the recommendation, and with the exception that the power to approve a development plan is not delegated. So they're just two pieces added to it. Thank you.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder, please? Councillor Chamberlain, Councillor Hall. Can we just...
Sorry.
A question, Councillor Lowe?
Just an explanation of why the move away from the recommendation to these added 2 points here.
Thank you, Councillor Lowe. I think we might wait, and that may well unfold as part of the mover speaking to the motion. So we'll wait and see if the question is not answered. We'll come back to it. Thank you. Councillor Hall.
Okay, for a long time now, I've been with the view that these components should not be delegated off to staff. And whilst the outcomes over time may have not been different to how decisions were decided by council staff, I do believe the community have an expectation that council, the elected councillors, should be involved in the process decision-making for development plans. They are important decisions, and community representation, i.e. councillors, should have some part in this process. Many councils have delegated planning committees with councillors on them, and we don't, so that's why I'm putting up the motion tonight. We've had a few examples just recently of planning decisions that we haven't had any input, development planning decisions that we haven't had any input into, but there's not a lot of them, and so I don't see that they would be an issue with tying council up. And I just think it's an expectation that community would probably want us to have some input into those. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hall. Does that answer the question, Councillor Lowe? Councillor Chamberlain. Other councillors? Councillor Simpendorfer.
Probably a question, Mr Mayor. I'm not sure who this would be for, but again, apologies, obviously being on leave, so this may have been covered in briefings and the like, but we have had a number of workshops and briefings on delegates, instruments of delegation. Has there been something that's triggered this, or have we missed this before?
There's a couple of things that have triggered this. The principal one is a relatively recent event with community unrest or disappointment with the outcome of the process at Huon Creek Road. There was a number of complaints lodged to the council about the outcome of all that, and when it got to us, it was basically a situation where we had no ability to influence any of it, and the way the structure is set up, the staff are required to follow a specific set of processes if they deal with it as well, which in most cases doesn't involve public notice or consultation with the community. These plans are in essence strategic planning or components of strategic planning. And strategic planning is one of the things that falls into the bailiwick of council, and given what we've experienced in the last little while, it's probably prudent that this be a decision of the council. It doesn't take away the ability of the officers to do their job and carry out all the administrative processes to get to the point, but it just involves councillors in a decision that is effectively a strategic decision. It only applies under the development plan overlay to fairly large projects where it's the strategic layout, for example, of an estate that might be being proposed. It's not talking about sets of units or small development processes. It's just the big end stuff under the development plan overlay. So that's been the catalyst that's brought this to the point we're at tonight. Do you wish to continue to speak? Or?
Thanks, Mr Mayor. That does clear that up for me. I'm just concerned around the some of the comments of more delegated committees that I don't think we need to have if there's complaints around certain powers of these delegations. My understanding is once those complaints hit a certain threshold, then the matter comes to council as need be. When I'm finished, if that's right. Yep. So I'm a bit concerned around the comments of the delegated committees where, I've made it clear my position on those. I think that the way that we've reviewed the instruments of delegation in the past quite thoroughly is serving its purpose. I don't know why we need to keep reacting, I guess, to things that pop up to try and make it better, to, I guess, convolute things, confuse people. So I'm happy to hear the debate and convince me otherwise. I'm just concerned that we're going down the road of more delegated committees with these types of things. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Simpson. Just to clarify, the reference to matters coming up to council if there's more than 5 objections refers to normal standard planning permits. The vast majority of development plan approvals don't require public notice. And in fact, in most instances, you can't give public notice because to do so would infer a third-party appeal right, which doesn't exist in the system under development plans. So it's different to the normal planning permit process. And it has exemptions and things that make it different. It's really the higher level strategic activity.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just to close out, I won't be supporting the amendment. I'll back the officers with what was originally put in the recommendation. Thank you.
Other councillors? Councillor Poulton?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Still, I think, like perhaps Councillor Lowe, lacking a bit of rationale behind what appears to be a spur of the moment or knee-jerk, perhaps reaction to something that's been identified in the community. I know in the past, if or when something like specifically in instruments of delegation does fail us or we find a way of improvement, we'd probably schedule a fairly robust and certainly legally guided workshop on that particular matter on its own in a councillor briefing. I know when we're all inducted as councillors and when we've revisited, usually it's been pretty heavily focused in terms of what the, I guess, potential unintended consequences are. I know there was some conversation, having this being the first time I've heard about this this evening, and no prior warning or communication having been entered into with me as a councillor. I know there was some further confusion or clarity around whether we've got the wording correct and what our intention is in this particular, I guess, motion before us tonight. I'm not comfortable. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say I'm going to defeat, well, I won't be supporting that motion. If it is defeated, I'd encourage that I can foreshadow. I'd be prepared to put a different motion. I'd probably see a sensible timeline and compromise to create that. So I'll leave that with my colleagues. But thank you, Mr. Mayor. Not overly comfortable with the knee-jerk response. Thank you.
Other councillors? Councillor Coulty?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would like to firstly make a couple of comments to respond to the points made by Councillor Simpendorfer and Councillor Poulton. Firstly, I do not think that we review the delegation documents thoroughly enough. One of the reasons is there are pages and pages and pages of names of laws under which we make the delegations. It is impossible to review it thoroughly. We delegate a lot of powers to the organization, to council staff, and I believe that we probably delegate too much, but that's a little bit beside the point. Now, as far as the knee-jerk, I do not think that it's a knee-jerk response. I have attended most of the briefings, and this year at least, and I have had contacts just like other councillors from the community on various matters, and the mayor has mentioned a couple of examples. I won't go into detail. I believe that council having a say in the development plan overlays is a good opportunity to make strategic decisions. I believe that we create an expectation gap in the community by not having by delegating this power to the staff, it is not going to result in councillors making a decision on every planning application of every shop and every whatever house improvement. It is a high-level strategic decision concerned with parts of the city. It is influencing the future of the city, our development as a city, and indeed it gives more representation to the community to participate in the decisions through influencing the or talking to the elected councillors. I will support this. I will support this motion, and yeah, I will support this motion. I'll stop here. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Coulty. Other councillors? Councillor Lowe?
Sorry. It was stated that there was other councils that have planning committees. Out of the 79 councils, how many of those councils are there that have a committee, planning committee?
Thank you for the question, Councillor Lowe. I think that's probably a question that will have to be taken on notice. But there are a good number of councils that do have planning committees. I don't know what that number is. Do you wish to continue, Councillor Lowe?
Yeah. Whilst I don't disagree in principle to the added components to the recommendation. Yeah, I'm going to have to vote against tonight in the fact that I'd like to actually give it some more consideration, some more time to find out what the implications, whatever that word is, there actually are. Because whilst I recognise some people, some councils actually have some knowledge in planning, and that at the moment, the whole next lot of councillors would maybe not have such in-depth knowledge that they could draw upon to help make this planning process better in any way. So I have my concerns around that. Just in regards to the instruments of delegation, unfortunately, Councillor Quilty, you're talking about we don't go over it enough. I've been involved a number of times on a line by line going through these instrument delegations, and if I could watch paint dry or grass grow, that would be my preferred option to going through some of these, but it is one that has to be done, I understand, but trust me, it's done regularly, so regularly enough. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Lowe. Question, Councillor Poulton?
Sorry, it's not so targeted as a question, Mr. Mayor, to a specific person to answer, but I just ask if my colleagues know the opportunity missed by not workshopping this.
This matter was discussed at briefing. A briefing, unfortunately, which you didn't attend. Now, if you think it should be workshopped in a greater level of detail, happy to hear your rationale for that.
Mr. Mayor, I stand by ready should this be defeated with a foreshadowed motion. Thank you.
Councillor Chamberlain, you're reserved.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is a relatively minor adjustment, other than what it does is it gives the community another avenue to discuss some of these very major plans with their local councillor before decisions are made. I don't think there's any reference in here about forming another committee. I think it's about the officers doing exactly the same job that they always do amongst these things. They look at the legalities, they look at the all of the ideas around these developments. But the bottom line is the accountability then comes back to the councillors, and I think that's appropriate in as many cases rather than not. That doesn't mean that we're going to necessarily make any decisions that are any different than would be made by the experts. As Councillor Lowe quite rightly pointed out, we employ experts to give us good advice, but that doesn't mean that we employ them necessarily to take the decisions for it and take it out of our hands, because the accountability with the public, I think, is critical. And in these cases, I think it's a good idea that the council has their hands on these pieces of paperwork before they get pushed through. And that's my rationale behind supporting this tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Hall to close.
Yes, our council has really, in the scheme of things, has delegated probably most of what we've only probably kept the things that we've had to keep as under the legislation or the Act that's not delegated. But we have choices to bring back some of those delegations and, if we choose to. This one, I think it's come up a few times over the course of myself being on council that I think we probably need to have some council representation in largest, bigger strategic developments. I think a lot of that is there's an expectation I've heard from the community around that. I mentioned about delegated planning committees, and I wasn't mentioning that's what we should have, but there are many councils that have them, which go into a lot more, a lot more detail around planning. So, we don't, and I think this is just one smaller area that we can take back to, that represents our community better in, our larger developments in this city. So it's from what we've been told from staff. It's not that there would be many of these. So as I said before, it's not like it'd probably be a real tie-up for council, but I just think it's an expectation that community would expect us to have some more input into strategic development, strategic decisions of development in our city.
Thank you, Councillor Hall. I put that motion. All those in favour? Councillor Hall, Councillor Mildren, Councillor Chamberlain, Councillor Quilty. Those against? Councillor Poulton, Councillor Lowe, Councillor Simpendorfer. The motion is carried. The next item of business is item 8.4, Municipal Association of Victoria motions for the 2024 State Council meeting. Do I have a motion, please? Councillor Hall, as recommended?
Yes.
Do I have a seconder for the recommendation as recommended? Councillor Chamberlain, Councillor Hall.
I put it on. Yes, so, at the moment, the costs are put back on to council, but we're trying, with this, it's, we're looking at to try and get the costs put back onto the state, as far as I'm aware.
Thank you. Councillor Chamberlain.
Yeah, all this is attempting to do is tidy up a very, what I would call untidy situation where the hydrants are owned by the councils, the mains are owned by the water authorities. And this is a recommendation to the MAV to put to the state government that that stuff gets tidied up where the responsible bodies can look after it effectively and not cause unnecessary interactions where things need to happen. I think it's a logical thing to put forward and hopefully it will be successful. Thank you.
Other councillors? Councillor Poulton.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Just a question. Do we have any, it's almost probably a premonition, but do we have any idea at the MAV State Council how many motions this will potentially sit in amongst, or if we've got support of other councils on a similar vein?
Thanks for the question, Councillor Poulton. I think it's probably too early to know that. The call for motions, I don't think it's actually due midnight tonight. So I would expect in the next probably 2 to 3 weeks we'll have some indication as to what the motions are that are before the MAV and where this sits in the scheme of things with the groupings and so on. But at this point, I probably can't answer your question.
Do we know if we've got the safety numbers of RCV in terms of other regional cities being under a similar requirement or situation?
Probably not in a formal sense, but in an informal sense, there's consensus. Councillor Poulton.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. I'll talk to it. I'll support the motion. The only reason I just ask those questions is because I just know sometimes these things get lost. And when you look at the actions from previous state councils, not often has there been outcomes to support our best advocacy work. Yeah, it'll receive my support. Thanks, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Poulton. Other councillors? Councillor Simpendorfer.
Well, just a question, Mr. Mayor. Is our intention here to make a recommendation to change the Water Act, or is it to just highlight the issue? And because I just fear this will get lost in the noise in state government if we could actually go in with a recommendation, if that's the intent of this motion, to make a recommendation to fix the actual act. I think we might get a bit more traction.
Thank you, Councillor Poulton. The way the MAV works is you move motions into the MAV to get the MAV to support the change, and then they take the action that's appropriate if the motion gets carried. And it gets debated on the floor of the MAV, so to say that you wanted to go, oh, let's specifically amend a piece of legislation might be a little bit limiting in what you can do in terms of the negotiation or the debate on the floor, but happy to listen to changing to the wording if that's something that makes you feel more comfortable with it.
No, I'll be God. I think the recommendation actually gives the flexibility to the CEO, does it not, to make minor amendments, so I'm comfortable with that. I just it might expedite things, and as I've been to the MAB before, but thank you for the education. I understand how they get lost in the noise, and I just want, if we want to get bang for our buck, I think if we can provide a solution, we'd probably get a little bit more buy-in from maybe some of the other regional cities, but I'll be supporting the motion. Thank you.
Thank you. Other councillors? Back to Councillor Hall to close. Okay, no further comment. I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. The next item on the agenda is 8.5, Sport and Recreation Fair Access Policy. Do I have a motion, please? Councillor Lowe, as recommendation. Councillor Simpendorfer, second. Councillor Lowe.
I'll be supporting putting this policy out tonight for the comment from our community. But I'd like to highlight, this is about fair access, and fair access for our women and girls in our community to participate in sport and providing the right facilities and infrastructure there to have them there. And I think the City of Wodonga have led this for a long time. I think we do this extremely well. I'm lucky enough to be involved in a few different sporting organisations, and the work that each of them do in this aspect is unbelievable. And that's both sides of the border, actually. I was out at the Goona the other day and looked at theirs as well, and I commend both sides of the border in this realm. So I'll be supporting this policy to go out for the draft, this draft policy to go out for community consultation. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Simpendorfer.
Thank you. Super quick. I won't speak to it as much because it's going out for community consultation, but thank you for the work that's been put in so far. I know it's part of it's legislative, but I think a significant piece of work's already been done. I look forward to hearing from the community and see it back before council. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Sempendorfer. Other councillors? Councillor Hall?
Yeah, I'll be supporting this to go out to the for community feedback. This report is heavily about gender equality. The policy seeks to meet legislative compliance, which will become mandatory for Victorian councils to have an endorsed policy under the Victorian Gender Equality Act 2020. All Victorian sport and recreation funding will require council to have an adopted sport and recreation fair access policy to make any funding applications after the 1st of July 2024. A failure to do so will have financial and service delivery risks to council. So it is important that we have a policy, how far it goes and where it goes. This is just a draft, so I'll be interested for council to receive any feedback, and it'll come back up for us for consideration in the future council meeting. So at this stage, yes, I support it going out, the draft policy going out.
Thank you, Councillor Hall. Other councillors? Councillor Quilty?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I will also be supporting the motion to put out this draft for community consultation. Just like Councillor pointed out, it is for fair access for women and girls, but not only. It is about fair access for all genders, male, female, trans, gender diverse people, etc. And I would like, and I call on the community members to review this draft thoroughly and to provide us feedback with what, in their opinion, is comfortable for them to participate in sports, including using change rooms, etc. And whether this policy achieves its purpose to make it safe for people of all genders and walks of life to fairly and equally participate and safely participate in sports. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Quilty. Other councillors? Councillor Chamberlain?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, I'll be supporting this to go out for public consultation. There are a couple of interesting issues in this, but I think they're more aligned with the state government legislation than they are with our local stuff. As Councillor Lowe quite rightly pointed out, Wodonga's been very proactive in trying to get equality for genders and so forth in sport and make sure that they get equal opportunity. And I think that needs to be continued, sorry. It'll be interesting to see what people have got to say about some of the more, shall I say, fringe elements of this sort of legislation and possible effects upon our community, but at this stage it hasn't been an issue, and hopefully it will continue to be very proactive and very positive in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Chamberlain. No other councillors? Councillor Lowe to close. Okay. All those in favour? Motion is carried unanimously. The next item is item 8.6, proposed sale of land, Logic, Lot 1, Roche Drive. Do I have a motion, please? Councillor Chamberlain, as per recommendation. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Hall. Councillor Chamberlain.
Yeah, this is a proposed land sale which we've been looking into for some time, and I think it's appropriate that we move ahead with this. Logic, obviously, we want to and need to sell this land, but we need to sell it at a reasonable rates to businesses that are going to be a positive for that area and for the town as a whole, and I think this fits the bill. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Chamberlain. Councillor Hall.
Yeah, this proposed land sale at the Logic Precinct came up to the September council meeting in 2023 for endorsement to go out for public exhibition, and it's now come back up to council for a decision to move forward with the sale. No submissions were received by council, so the next step is for the CEO to be authorised to sign all documents and undertake all works that are required to complete the sale, including contract of sale and a Section 173 agreement. This is another positive outcome for our Logic precinct, and I'm happy for this sale to be moving forward. So good one.
Thank you, Councillor Hall. Councillor Poulton.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This one's a good, although somewhat laggy, process for council to receive for a decision. Obviously, from the initial conversations back in September last year, but that's to be expected as a can-do council that's prepared to work with a particular buyer. What I specifically want to do is just congratulate and acknowledge the staff, the officers, through you, Mr. CEO, that have been involved in this, because obviously through the negotiation process, not only has there been a particular resizing of the land parcel, but also an increase in the rate of sale. So the actual sale price is higher than what was anticipated or expected by council, and is actually another step in the right direction to ensuring that Logic pays back the community everything and more than what it's owed to each individual ratepayer and community member. So just mainly point of speaking was congratulations to you, Mr. CEO, and your team that have been part of that success. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Poulton. Other councillors? Councillor Chamberlain to close.
Yeah, the only thing I've got to add is to echo my fellow councillors' comments about the staff and the work they've put into this. Very impressive. They do a very good job on these things, and I'm happy to have them on board doing this sort of work. Fantastic. Thank you.
Thank you. I put the motion. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. The next item is 8.7, Hospital Advocacy Follow-up from the Health Summit. Do I have a motion, please? Councillor Chamberlain.
Yes, I'd like to move a slightly modified motion. Here we go. That, 1, Wodonga Council publicly thanks all health workers and support staff who go above and beyond expectation, functioning with existing inadequate facilities to provide the best health care for our region under very difficult conditions, and that a letter of thanks be published in the Board of Mail and sent to the Albury Wodonga Health Chief Executive and the Board of Medical Association. 2, the Wodonga Council endorses the general action items derived from the Albury Wodonga Regional Health Summit and the more specific matters listed below. 3, as a specific outcome of the Albury Wodonga Regional Health Summit, representation to be made to A, seek to have health funding allocated on a needs basis, catering for the growth of our communities. B, advocate for a return to and acceptance of the capacity data in the 2021 Clinical Services Plan, with a commitment to funding the infrastructure required to facilitate the 2036 to 2040 projections and establishing a new single-site hospital. C, advocate for a commitment to and fully fund the 2021 Master Plan facilities and any facilities to accommodate tertiary education and military medic training. D, the Commonwealth, New South Wales and Victorian governments to advocate for establishment of a tripartite agreement to create a fully cross-border regional health service for the Albury-Wodonga region, which makes the Murray River border invisible. E, advocate to all levels of government to provide a regional governance model with an independent chair and involving industry and community to create a robust cross-border regional health district that is appropriate for our community now and in the future, and with, amongst other things, an express purpose of creating clear and simplified administrative pathways and reducing governing process duplication and layers of authority. F, request the Victorian and New South Wales cross-border commissioners to establish a regional cross-border governmental roads, infrastructure and services coordinating committee, inclusive of the local subject matter experts, to coordinate the provision of roads, infrastructure and services beyond the hospital site, and to recognise the regional services, catchment and operations. G, the Victorian Government seeking collaboration as a trusted partner with the Federal and New South Wales Government in a bipartisan approach and with the Albury-Wodonga region community. H, federal and state governments to provide integrated pathways into the health professions and a rural and regional collaborative health research Centre of Excellence based in Albury-Wodonga Regional Health Services premises. I, the state and federal governments, to provide seed funding for the establishment of a collaborative education and research centre for rural and regional health professionals, including operational resources and physical facilities based in Albury-Wodonga Region Health Services premises. J, that National Cabinet on the matters raised as outcomes of the Health Summit to pursue collaboration from all arms of government to achieve a sustainable cross-border health system. And item 4, as an outcome of the Albury-Wodonga Regional Health Summit and as a regional leadership initiative, that A, an invitation be forwarded to the below listed participants to form an overarching advocacy committee comprising representation from the Board of Medical Association, the CEO or nominee of the National Rural Health Alliance, the mayors or nominees of council from within the region, and a nominee from specialist health service focused community interest groups, with the committee having the ability to co-opt additional members as relevant. And B, that Wodonga Council participate in the overarching advocacy committee and the mayor be the representative on that committee. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Chamberlain. Do I have a seconder, please? Councillor Hall, Councillor Chamberlain.
I think I've almost said enough. To be fair, the Albury-Wodonga Region Health Summit was a great piece of work put together by the staff at Wodonga Council in particular. And it brought up a number of issues and a number of issues came up before, just before, I think the timing was not coincidental, that really did point out to the fact that the plan that's being pushed forward will not and cannot deliver what they're trying to tell us it should. We've had a plan back in 2021 which said what we need. It was very, very comprehensive, and unfortunately it seemed to get kicked down the road under the guise of political expediency for what I can only say was how little money can we put together and take this away as an issue. That's not acceptable for what we need to do. We need proper health outcomes, and our health workers need to have a proper facility that's capable of delivering what the people of this area need for health. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Chamberlain. Councillor Hall.
I support the recommendation put forward, and having attended this event, I was impressed by the representation to the Health Summit by our community leaders, politicians, healthcare workers and representatives. Also just a community that were in the gallery. It was a fantastic event. I really thought we did excelled as a council in promoting this and getting the people on board. It was informative and eye-opening. There were some great discussions had, and speeches were diverse and in some cases very emotive. The summit, in my view, was a success. We may not have got the changes as of yet, but we certainly got our message out there. And this recommendation, this motion put forward just adds more advocacy to where we're already at, and the committee will move forward. And I think as a council we should all get on board to continue with this and not give up. So not sit back. We need to be really on the front foot as a council. So
Thank you, Councillor Hall. Other councillors? Councillor Simpedorfer.
Just two questions. Just on point J, there is that an advocacy piece that we're advocating to National Cabinet on the matters raised, or is it more of a statement? At point J, so yeah, I'll just read that National Cabinet on the matters raised as outcomes of the Health Summit to pursue collaboration from all forms of government. Is that an advocacy piece that we're looking to do, or can you explain? Okay. Should we include to advocate to National Cabinet, or? Yep.
Thank you. That's a good question. When you go back to the start of all those alphabet points, it says, as a specific outcome from the Albury-Wodonga Region Health Summit, representation be made to National Cabinet on the matters raised as outcomes of the Health Summit to pursue collaboration from all arms of government. So yes, it's an advocacy point. Yep. You had a second question? Okay, other councillors wish to speak? Councillor Lowe?
Yes, I'll be supporting this document tonight because the Health Summit highlighted everything that all of us already knew, and it put it in the public realm and in the space. And I'd like to thank, speaking of public realm, Dr. Amanda Cohn for having the document released through FOI. There was a couple of things I picked up out of a couple of things she said, and one was one of the best things she did when she was a councillor for Albury Council was the 2 cities, 1 community, because it highlights how we can all work together to achieve outcomes for both sides of the community. The other thing she said was all parties need to work together. So all parties at all levels. And that's exactly what this Health Summit was about. It wasn't about any particular party or any particular level of government or anything like that. It was about bringing the best people together to get the best outcome for our community. These dot points and highlights in the recommendation is a very good summary of what's happened and what's come out of that Health Summit. I think we're already seeing outcomes from the Health Summit. I think we're making progression and we're making steps, and all our steps are going forward. They might be slow, but we're moving forward. People are taking note now, and that's what I'm most enjoyed about our community and the input from our community members and our representatives at that Health Summit. So I'll be supporting the document tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Lowe. Other councillors? Councillor Poulton.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. There's a bit going on in this motion. Might get to that in a second. First of all, I just want to say sorry, I guess, to the community. Sorry that the councils, collective councils, haven't been stronger and more united on this. Not that that's my position to apologise on behalf of someone else, but we'd have much greater impact if I think what Councillor Lowe reflected upon. And I'm still worried there's a little bit of division there in approach, but if we were actually from the get-go, from the second, that this became an announcement of the funding, if we had have been cohesive on approach from there and would have been a bit stronger. So that's the apology out of the way. Sorry, yes, Councillor Lowe. Thanks, Mr. Mayor. So the apologies out of the way. There's a lot in this motion, and I just hope some of it is new or different, or just a refresh of an approach that's been tried over many years by our region to get recognition. I just hope it truly gets traction and continues in the way that it has. But there's just one thing. There's one thing that I just want to, if I can, just speak collectively on behalf of the councillors. How good is it when you know you're right? Like, how good is it when you go out there on a whim and you fight damn hard and you just that gut feeling, you just go, it doesn't feel right, and you win it. There's only one thing better than that, and that's when someone goes on record and says, I was wrong. That's what I haven't seen yet. That's what I hope I see from particularly elected representatives and community leaders at state and federal level that weren't necessarily on the right page from day one, despite Wodonga Council being there. That's my request. It takes a bit to swallow your pride and say I was wrong, but how good does it feel being right, councillors? It's fantastic. Mr. Mayor will receive my support, and as I said, I just hope it continues an important conversation and actually has actions out of it, rather than, I guess, the saddest case scenario, which would be grandstanding grandstanding and speaking and looking great. Not saying that's the case on the health of a community. Thank you, councillors and Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Poulton. Before I go to Councillor Quilty, question from Councillor Lowe was answered. Okay, Councillor Quilty.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I will be supporting the motion. The motion the motion that Councillor Chamberlain has moved in place of the motion in the report doesn't deviate hugely from the motion of the report and supports a lot of outcomes from the excellent health summit representation that we have had. Outlines very well what we want to advocate for and try to achieve from various levels of governments. I quite like point 4, especially point 4A, where we forward an invitation to the listed participants to create an overarching advocacy committee, which hopefully will create a strong and coordinated and well-equipped body of work that will be able to adequate for the best health outcomes for the region on behalf of all the participants and the communities. But I especially like point 1, which suggests to publicly thank and to have it in writing in the letters, in the 2 letters and in the body mail, publicly thank the health workers and support staff who work under difficult conditions, providing the best health care that they can for their patients. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Quilty. Just like to say a few things. Oh, sorry, Councillor Simpson.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. I'm sure it was probably, I hope it was highlighted at the summit, but my apologies to the community. I was away, I was on leave. It wasn't a recreational holiday, it was work. So apologies for not being at the summit, but by all accounts, very successful. So congratulations to everyone involved in that. I'll be really short and sweet. In relation to this, some people want it to happen, and some people wish it would happen, and some people make it happen. Let's make this happen. Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Simpendorfer. There's a whole heap of things that I'd like to have known and put on the record. Basically, I wish to thank every one of the participants who actively engaged in the summit. That includes those people that were panellists, those people who were speakers, the facilitators, the MC. Everything that went through was so well done, and it was put together quite professionally. I'd like to thank the staff from Council, from the Cube, right through our organisation where we've had involvement in this, because that was a mammoth exercise to put that together. You think about the logistics and the people from the various different places, how it was put together, how the dates were sorted out and organised, how the whole thing was structured to meet the needs of all the participants that we were trying to get to attend. I've been on record as saying I'm disappointed that Victoria were unable to attend. We will seek to continue to engage with the Victorian Government on all of the issues that we've talked about. There's a number of things that have transpired through this process and immediately before the summit. Immediately before the summit, we had some interesting information that was released through Freedom of Information. Thank you to the efforts and the work of Dr. Amanda Conn. Not least of which I think is very significant is the letter from the chair of the Albury Wodonga Health and the CEO of Albury Wodonga Health to the 2 respective health ministers in the states. That letter, to me, is meaningful in so many different ways, but I can only feel that the 2 professional people that wrote that letter must have known that that letter was accessible through Freedom of Information, and I read that letter as being a cry for help from the rest of us to try and get the health service back on track. I read that letter as them saying to us, we cannot get or deliver what this community needs and deserves with the funding and the process that's in place. That is fundamental to what's come out of those things. The next thing that is instrumental in convincing me that the evidence is now overwhelming that redevelopment on the current site is not the right solution. If you look at the master plan that was released on the night before our summit, the preferred options and the series of plans that are in that master plan, there is one particular plan that caught my attention or was drawn to my attention, and that plan shows that the intention of this project over time is to take up land that is outside the current site of the hospital. And I'm talking about significant parcels of land that are already developed commercially and or residentially. Now, I think that slipped through the radar, and I don't think that's been picked up too well, but there is a plan in the documents that were released that shows that, and I think that's significant. Okay, can I make a request for an extension of time, councillors? Yep. All those in favour? Thank you, unanimous. Thank you, councillors. The main things that come out of this are that we have support from our community, and that's not just in Wodonga, it's across the whole Albury-Wodonga regional community. There are different views and there are different aspects of priority and different perceptions of what the outcome might or should be, but fundamentally we have the support of our community to seek the best health service outcome, and that is exactly what we are pursuing. We've steadfastly said that that should be on a new site with a single hospital on a new site. We have steadfastly said that it doesn't matter whether that's on a site in New South Wales or Victoria, Albury or Wodonga, it just needs to be the right site for the criteria that should be applied to the selection of the site. My view is, from council, we'll continue to be professional in the way we approach this, and we will be methodical. We will work through this stuff. We won't be reacting and knee-jerk reacting to things. We will be methodical and professional in the way we move with this. We expect that there is going to be attempts made by people with different points of view to get different outcomes, and we need to deal with those, again, professionally and methodically. And if something comes up that suggests that we've been a little bit on the wrong path, then we need to adjust and deal with those things. This is not about a quick fix. This is about the long-term health service planning and delivery for the whole of our region. Our region has in excess of 300,000 people, and in essence, only Geelong is a bigger region in regional Australia in terms of health services. And Geelong is only about 315, Geelong and Surf Coast together. We are bigger than Hobart, and Hobart Hospital is remarkable. We are bigger than Wollongong by a small amount. We are bigger than Shepparton in terms of what we have right now. We are bigger than most of the other regional facilities that you can look at across the country. The Tweed Heads Hospital, you might be able to run a conversation about that one because that's a brand new hospital, and it was built at around about $725 million, and it serves a different sort of community layout. So this is really important that we stay the course and we stay professional and we stay methodical about how we go about it. I think I'll leave it at that, and I'll go back to the mover, Councillor Chamberlain, for closing.
Yes, again, can I just reiterate again, as I've stated before, thanks to the staff. It did a power of work putting this together. Wonderful. Not easy to get 3 levels of government, even though we didn't get the Victorian government. We certainly got Victorian parliamentary representation, which I think was important. Thanks, as Councillor Lowe pointed out, to Dr. Amanda Conn. She's in a unique position in the New South Wales government where she's the head of a health committee and she can request information that no normal person would be able to get. And she's done a power of work on this. She's found thousands of pages, almost all of which reinforce what we've been saying all along. It's nice to be right, as Councillor Poulton stated, but it's also important to be able to prove in black and white that we were right to start with. And everything, or almost everything that Amanda Conn has been able to get has proven that what we were afraid of is exactly what's happening. And that is that it's a band-aid measure. We're building to a budget, not to needs, and we will end up with, if it goes ahead in its current form, hard-working staff working in conditions that are not appropriate for reasonable health care, and it will give us a hospital circumstances that just doesn't fit what the community is going to need going forward. We need this to be done properly. We need it to be done on a single site. They've found out, they worked out, and I think they knew fairly on that this was never going to be able to be done on a single site in the Albury redevelopment in the current position, and that's becoming very obvious. And it's just not appropriate for the health needs of our community. And by community, I mean 300,000 in the wider community, not just the people of Wodonga. I've said it before, I'll say it again, this is probably the most important thing we do as this council in our term, even though we don't have a decision to make on this other than advocacy. But we keep pushing, and it's really refreshing to see that we are still completely 100% behind this, because this is absolutely critical. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Chamberlain. I put that motion. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you. Thank you, councillors. The next item on the agenda is 8.8, which is move Albury Wodonga Integrated Transport Strategy proposed endorsement for public exhibition. Councillor Chamberlain.
I'd like to move a slight variation on option 3, to be fair. I've stated all along that although there has been a power of work go into this, and I do appreciate that work, I don't think the resultant strategy reflects what is best for Wodonga in particular. Albury obviously have a different opinion in as much as they've engaged it. So I'd like to move the motion that the Albury Wodonga Integrated Transport Strategy and the 2015 Transport Strategy both be abandoned.
Thank you, Councillor Chamberlain. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Quilty. Councillor Chamberlain.
Can I say I appreciate the amount of work that's gone into this, and without trying to say that every word of this draft strategy doesn't suit what we're trying to do going forward, there are certainly some parts of it that I think are going to be relevant. Having said that, the overall strategy from what I can see is less about integrated transport and more about removal of transport. Certainly the public transport component, I think we should advocate. We've been trying to advocate for a number of years to try and improve public transport in all areas of the community, and that needs to continue. But I just can't in good conscience support this strategy. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Chamberlain. Councillor Quilty. Other councillors? Councillor Poulton.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Whilst it's admirable what Councillor Chamberlain has put before the council, I didn't actually expect this being an option to be debated for or against tonight, so I'm going to give it my best option or effort, I should say, just to try to enlighten and perhaps allow my colleagues to consider their choice of action this evening. Go way back to when the two cities, one community agreement was struck between Albury and Wodonga. This was one of the slated areas to be addressed, and that would obviously with it have teething issues in terms of whether, to the opinion of a councillor or not, it reflects Wodonga Council's transport requirements or not. But what I'm worried about is there's already in our 2050 vision feedback coming through from the community. The number one sort of common theme is to address transport and look at how we interact with the two cities. I've heard councillor colleagues in the past say things like, oh, all roads lead to Albury. For someone whose roads lead to Wodonga just as conveniently each and every day of my life, I think that'd be a little bit narrow-minded or perhaps one-sided in perspective for that. The intention here is to make it stronger for us to advocate. But what I'm feeling or worried about is derailing this, perhaps before we've even gone to the community to say, hey, what do you think we should do? Do you agree with what's in this plan? Which to me would be the logical step, and we've done with everything else tonight. The problem we have here is I'm worried there's a bias. There's a bias from those that don't ride a push bike. Now, I'm the first one to say I probably should ride a bike more often. My body would probably be beneficial for it. But I'd just challenge my councillor colleagues to really think about what fact, what level of engagement they've got other than an opinion or something that was heard somewhere, to think that it would be a smart governance move after months of delays to turf out over 2 years of work just on this alone, but what has been multiple council terms of efforts to try to best represent our community. So we've just seen us try to do it with health and have that conversation, and here's something, according to our latest data saying to come through another topic, this is the thing that has the highest amount of attention required from people engaging with us so far. Above health, they think that's taken care of. They think we're doing that. Next, we want you to fix transport. And here we are going, kill it off, don't worry, we know what we're doing. We haven't even heard from the community councillors. We haven't even heard from them. This is the opportunity. 21 days, 28 days, whatever the recommendation is, throw it out, see what they say. If they come back and say it doesn't reflect Wodonga's needs, by all means, 7 of us will agree with them, I'm sure. But I dare say the most sensible option is to go with getting communities' feedback, as we are legislated to do. Won't be supporting the motion. Sorry, councillor. Thanks, Mr Mayor.
Thanks, Councillor Poulton. Other Councillor Light.
One note before it come out of your mouth, Councillor Poulton, is this motion is taking away the opportunity for community to speak. It's literally just thrown out the door an opportunity for the community to speak to an integrated transport strategy. Like Councillor Poulton said, it's one of the most talked about things. I actually urged my fellow councillors last week, actually, that Vic Health and MAV ran a webinar directed to councillors and council on leadership and around how integrated transport, specifically bike and walking, and how improvement of health. I'm just wondering if my fellow councillors took the opportunity to watch that webinar that was put on by MAV and Vic Health, and did they take anything away from that? Because it was around this very topic. It was around transport, it was around health, it was around leadership and advocacy. We're not talking about getting rid of cars. They call it integrated for a reason. It's not about bikes, it's not about cars, it's about movement of people and the best way to do that. It's about how do we get someone from Wodonga to Albury, Albury to Wodonga? How do we move them from Barranduda to central Wodonga? How do we move them from Wodonga West to central Wodonga? How do we get them from the train station to central Wodonga? You know? Yes, topical. Yes, needs to be addressed. How do we do it without an integrated transport strategy? How do we do it without actually listening to the community? I cannot support this motion tonight, and I actually foreshadow a motion if this doesn't get up as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Lowe. Councillor Simpendorf.
Yeah, I'm not going to go over everything that's already been said because I agree with what has been said by Councillor Poulton and Lowe, I've just got to say it's taken me by surprise, the motion that's put forward. So I guess a question, Councillor Chamberlain, what's the purpose of taking this off the table and not going to communities for their opinion and their, I guess, feedback?
Councillor Chamberlain.
When it was previously brought to council, the integrated transport strategy was voted down, but there was no resolution as to what to do with it finally, so it was held up in limbo. All this is designed to do is make some certainty about it. Thank you.
Councillor Simpson.
Okay, I can't support something that's not going to go out to the community first and hear what the community has got to say about it. They're the ones that put me here, so I want to hear what they've got to say. I can't support throwing it out. Thank you.
Other councillors? Councillor Hall.
Yes, look, I had a second look at this, so I didn't support it back in September. I mentioned many reasons. I felt that, you know, the cars were secondary. They've done some minor adjustments to the report, but nothing that made me go, yes, it's changed sufficiently enough. The strategic objectives in the report has a transport mode hierarchy, and cars are at the very bottom. And it says here, space within the road reserve is limited and there's strong competition for finite space. All transport projects in Albury Wodonga will adopt the road user hierarchy to ensure the movement of people will be prioritised over the expansion of road capacity when addressing congestion and car parking demand. By adopting the road user hierarchy, future development, transport projects will balance the movement of people and goods with the amenity and quality of streets as places for people. And that in itself says everything about the whole strategy. Cars are at the very bottom, and whilst I support walking and bike riding and what have you, I've got major concerns with putting that hierarchy above cars, especially when it comes into the CBD area. I'm concerned that our retail and restaurants and all that will be affected. Let's face it, if you live a bit further out, you get into a car, and if there is issues going into your CBD, you'll end up heading towards either one of the larger shopping complexes and park there, or over to Albury and one of their shopping complexes. It'll deter people from the inner CBD, and that's the overarching hierarchy of the strategic objectives. So I can't support it, I'm sorry. I support the motion that the Councillor Chamberlain has put forward. I just can't support this to go out. It's I think we're not doing our community a favour by putting this forward. And I appreciate the staff's work in it, but the changes made were very, very, very minor. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hall. Mr. CEO, you wanted to make reference to some points? Happy to do it at the end if you want. No, do it now.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just raised the issue of Council's advocacy plan actually includes some transport information in that, including public transport advocacy. I wonder if we rescind the 2015 policy and don't progress the current works, what's the basis for our advocacy, and what position do we take in government funding applications like the roads and community infrastructure programs going forward? The state have actually written to us and expressed their concern about council progressing this matter, and that's been provided to all councillors. So I believe that you need to have something to back your advocacy position going forward, and I'd ask councillors before they consider this motion to give the staff some documents of which we will be able to go off and progress that other resolution of council about advocacy. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. CEO. Every councillor except the reserved has spoken, so there's a number of things there's quite a few things that have been said here tonight that I actually agree with, but I think we're missing some of the fundamentals. The first thing is, if this was a good transport strategy, then we should be out there supporting it and doing the things that I've heard other councillors say. But when you look at this transport strategy, it's not a good transport strategy. It misses so many different things. For example, and I loathe to come out with examples because the example then becomes the focus, but for example, this transport strategy addresses private vehicles by and large as not being consistent with good, say, climate change outcomes or environmental outcomes. That is short-sighted in the extreme, because if you look at what's going on with all of the different technologies and things, private vehicles, whether it be an electric vehicle or whether it be a hydrogen-driven vehicle or something else that we haven't come across yet, should be part of the strategy, not a strategy directed at taking cars out of the equation because cars are bad, they pump carbon dioxide out into the air. Well, not all cars do. And if we're doing a genuine long-term strategy, then we would be looking at how that fits into the total overall equation. We would be looking at what the impacts are in regard to our hinterland, how people get to us, etc. And in terms of public transport, yes, we do need to do things about public transport and drive that agenda. And possibly some of the things that are in here are perfectly acceptable in regard to public transport. When you look at the consultation that has proceeded in regard to public transport particularly, the same responses are being received now as were received back in the 1980s. And in essence, we haven't moved very far forward with actual use of public transport, but we have moved a long way forward with the service that we deliver in Albury Wodonga. In essence, the determinations or the understandings, you know, from the 1980s was, yes, people are happy to use public transport, but they want to use public transport that's going to come to their front door when they want it to be at their front door and take them as expediently and as quickly to the destination they want to go to. And that's just not ever going to be the case financially sustainable in any way. So there's all those sorts of things that I think this strategy's just got twisted inside out, mixed up, and it's lost its way. I've tried to talk about all these things many times before. Right from the very beginning, when the strategy was first started, I made a whole series of comments that I would have expected would have at least been taken on board, and unfortunately they don't appear in any of the documentation. They don't seem to be represented in any form in the documentation. To me, this is just not a good integrated transport strategy for Wodonga at all, and in all good conscience, I cannot say that we put this out to public consultation because it's not going to do the job that we need to have done for Wodonga. It's really important that we get integrated transport right, and I do take on what the CEO says, and I think perhaps we should be looking at trying to do a workshop and put together a strategy that is usable in the short term for the things that the CEO has referred to, and I think we can do that collectively around the table in a workshop. So I'll put that back to the mover and seconder if that's what the mover and seconder wishes to deal with, but thank you, and back to Councillor Quilty, who reserved.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I must say that I also do not think that the integrated transport strategy before us tonight meets the expectations and the purposes of a vibrant and thriving city. My chief concern is that this strategy is not going to work for our economic development strategy. The reality is we will never be able to have the public transport infrastructure of the levels that they have in big cities. We simply do not have the resources or in some places, the authorities for doing that. And that will destroy in many ways our opportunities to attract people from suburbs and surrounding areas for shopping, for using various services the city has to offer, and it may also detract people from considering buying a property in the city. I will quickly share my personal story. When my husband and I got jobs in Albury and moved here from Wagga Wagga and rented in Albury for a while, we decided that we want to settle in the area and buy a house, and I suggested let's buy a house in Wodonga. Because I can still, the houses there are cheaper, and we can still drive to Albury to work. Well, I was foolish. I was foolish because I picked Wodonga for the wrong reason. I picked it for the closeness to Albury. I should have picked it for its natural beauty, for its surroundings, and for the opportunities, for the recreational opportunities it has to offer. However, a lot of people going to make hopefully the same decision. And it has worked out for us, but it would have never worked out for us if Wodonga were a conglomerate of so-called people-centered cities, 15-minute cities, what have you. Making Wodonga active and healthy is not going to be achieved by taking away the option, the choice of driving a public vehicle and replacing it with a more obvious choice of walking or riding a bike or what have you. People have different needs and different recreational preferences. Sometimes you need to drive before you exercise, and the community is diverse, and so are the needs for sports and recreation. Above all, I would like to say that I'm not comfortable with just leaving us in limbo. Whilst we are not legislated to have a transport strategy, I'm not comfortable with just canning this strategy, which I do not support anyway, and the 2015 strategy, and Mr. CEO made a good point, and I foreshadow possibly, should this motion be defeated, I foreshadow another motion that is similar to Councillor Chamberlain's, but includes workshopping a different strategy with councillors. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Quilty. There may not be a need to move a formal amendment. If the mover and seconder are happy to add the words that reflect the sentiment of the CEO, then that is acceptable.
So I think on reflection and on the information put before us by the CEO, which I think is appropriate, particularly given the public transport strategy part of it and the advocacy to government for funding, that we add to the motion that the council workshop and develop a new strategy for Wodonga as a matter of priority within the current operational budget. Thank you.
Do you accept that? Okay, given that the mover and seconder are accepting that, then Councillor Poulton.
Mr. Mayor, it's too late for me to move to suspend standing orders? Yes, it is. We haven't put it though. It's sort of been, the purpose has been changed a little. It might have some unintended consequences councils haven't discussed before voting. Yeah, I'd like to move to suspend standing orders, please, Mr. Mayor, for the purpose of continued discussion around that addition to the motion. Thank you.
That's a procedural motion, so I'll put that motion. All those in favour? Councillor Quilty, Councillor Poulton, Councillor Simpendorfer, Councillor Lowe. Those against? Councillor Chamberlain, Councillor Mildred, Councillor Hall. The motion is carried with suspended standing orders. Thank you. Councillor Poulton.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. If I can just get read out to me again, just that addition to the, just to refresh my memory, please.
That council workshop and develop a new strategy for Wodonga as a matter of priority within the current operational budget.
Thank you. Sorry, Mr. Mayor. Yep, thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Chamberlain. I'm a little worried about the timeline leading into the election this year. The information already within the strategy that was before us and the fact that we'd still be flying blind to a degree in workshopping that strategy, that it's actually going to have some unintended consequences there where we may not be able to act in the interest of the community. I'm just a little bit concerned about the ad hocness, if that's a word, of what's just been put before us. I'd just be much more comfortable. I hear the conversation around the hierarchy within the document. If you're a car user, which I am for convenience, I know there's other methods and what have you, but I just think of the financial benefits to a council that's got a sustainability issue, financial sustainability, sorry to clarify that. I guess it's a question to our, through you, Mr. Mayor, to our appropriate director. Would a bike network be cheaper to maintain than the roads that we'd have to keep building and maintaining more if the hierarchy was on the opposite way? That was just one concern straight away that I've got. But I'm not against trying to find a resolution here, but I still think we're lacking community input. Thanks, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Poulton, other councillors?
Yeah, I'd just like to. Is it possible that we can put a timeline onto that amendment? Well, sometimes.
Well, it says as a matter of priority, so that would, the CEO would incorporate that into the next available briefing, I presume, or day of briefing to develop it. I think that's only reasonable. We can't really go specifically setting dates and things. That wouldn't work. Interestingly, what I understand this to mean is that we develop a quick and relatively simple strategy that carries us through the statutory requirements that we have to meet the funding things and so on, and nothing greater than that. So in essence, this could be a one-pager. Now, the actual detailed strategy stuff could go on with the new council or at some other point in time when the council has a budget to pick it up and revisit it. In light of the things that have been said all round, I think that's a reasonable outcome. But happy to hear other councillors. Councillor Simmendorfer.
Yeah, sorry, I just still can't support it at all. I'm a bit shocked, to be honest. I'll just draw everyone's attention. I think page 555. The draft strategy had 8 community presentations, 13 stakeholder workshops, an online survey with 318 submissions, interactive maps with 657 contributions, 10 pop-up sessions that received 222 comments. So that included local businesses, industry, government agency, and over 800 community members, and we do not want to put this out for the community to back it because we think we can do better. I can't support it, Mr. Mayor. It's, if it wasn't so serious, it'd be laughable.
Councillors, any other councillors wish to speak? Councillor Lai.
Just to pick up on the point about come out of the operational budget, do we have a figure here? Because it's a very broad statement, the operational, especially considering the finance and budget committees job at hand at the moment on trying to decrease spending, etc., etc. Do we even have a budget available?
Councillor Lowe, the CEO suggested that that was something that was needed to be put in there to deal with matters, but I'll give it to him to explain that.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Councillor Lowe, the requirement for a change in process is to say how you're going to back that in the budget. And currently in the budget, we don't have any further consultancy money and we're heading into a difficult financial situation. The only way that we can do this is within existing operations which are stretched as it is, but it depends on how simple you want this document to be. But it will be difficult.
Thank you. As I said earlier, my understanding is the intent is to put together a very basic, simple, straight to the point document that might only be a page. Depending, it's get workshop by all councillors, it might only be a page. Clearly, it's going to draw from all the information that we've got from all the different sources that might be relevant, including the document that we're not adopting. There might be facts and whatever that necessarily come out of that. But this document is to be a simple, straightforward document to tide over those things that the CEO has brought to our attention. It's not designed to be a replacement strategy in the context of the actual document that's been presented. Councillor Poulton.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. I don't want to state the bleeding obvious to any of my colleagues. I'm sorry if I do. Just referring to item 8.3, an earlier thing this evening where we did pivot and we did, within a weekend of consideration, add some words based on the fact we've had community members over the last couple of weeks talk to us about development plans and the council having no say in it. Here we are, only minutes later, deciding that even though we all got emails over the weekend around our integrated transport strategy from community members wanting to have a say, we're about to potentially ignore that. And like only, 5 items ago, we had one set of rules. Here we are now, different set of rules. Councillors, I am bamboozled. If you sat back and watched these council meetings, I'm bamboozled as to how you could go, that's fair and reasonably representing what we're meant to do by the Act, and we swear upon as councillors each and every time, every 4 years when you're elected. I cannot see how any of the recommendation or anything before us is actually genuine attempt to do that job on behalf of the community. I'm sorry, I can't see it, Mr Mayor. We've double standards tonight, double standards. I just can't see how you could live with yourself with that.
Councillor Poulton, I find that a little bit offensive because it's not a double standard. It's been clearly articulated by different people around the table that different views apply. And I think that's fair and reasonable that's been applied. It is not a double standard. The difference, and which has always been something that's been openly regarded in this council, is if something isn't what you would expect it should meet to the standard, you don't put it out and you don't deal with it. You don't give false expectation to a community on something that's going to come back and get knocked over. You just don't do it. So it's not a hypocrisy. So simple. Sorry, Councillor Hall.
We had, as far as I'm aware, we had 2 emails, and I think one of them was an Albury, ex-Albury council staff, but we had 2. That's all we've had. And I've spoken to many over the past on this. And so, you know, in some of the documentation saying about community consultation, I believe I read somewhere there was 33% were from Wodonga. So it's not quite as drastic as being made out. But I can't put forward a document that it doesn't support many things that I think are important for our community, and I don't have any intention to do it. And I move that we go back into standing orders.
Procedural motion has been put before us. I put the procedural motion that we resume standing orders. All those in favour? Councillor Hall, Councillor Milgren, Councillor Chamberlain, Councillor Quilty. Those against? Councillor Simpendorfer, Councillor Lowe, Councillor Poulton. The motion to resume is carried. Who's got?
Yes, sorry.
Thank you. We're up to the close. Closed. Okay, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Councillor Quilty, Councillor Chamberlain, Councillor Mildren, Councillor Hall. Those against? Councillor Poulton, Councillor Simpendorfer, Councillor Lowe. The motion is carried. The next item before us is item 8.9, appointment of an authorised officer. Sorry. Yep, okay. Councillor Lowe has requested an adjournment. We adjourn for 5 minutes. I put the motion. All those in favour? Carried. Thank you. Welcome back. We're back to item 8.9, appointment of authorised officer. Do I have a motion, please? Councillor Hall, Councillor Chamberlain, as recommended. Councillor Hall.
I don't have really anything to add to this. It's just authorise the appointment of an officer and under the instruments of delegation, the CEO remains determines who gets the delegation. So, yep, it's just a procedure, really. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hall. Councillor Chamberlain.
Just procedural matter. New officer, new delegation allows them to do their job. Yep, nothing more to add.
Thank you. Councillor Poulton, question?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to the CEO, we seem to have had a lot more of these in recent months as a report to council than what we have over the history of this council term. Is there a reason for that?
Mr. CEO?
I believe it's just a change of staff, so council needs to do the authorisation for each of these. It can't be delegated, so hence it goes before council, but we've had a changeover in staff positions.
Thank you. Any other councillors? Councillor Hall to close? No. Okay, I put the motion. All those in favour? Carried unanimous. The next item is 8.10, Finance and Budget Delegated Committee Minutes. Do I have a recommendation, please? Councillor Chamberlain, as recommended. Do I have a seconder? Yes. Councillor Lowe. Councillor Chamberlain.
Yeah, pretty straightforward. The Finance and Budget Delegated Committee meeting was a public meeting, although it did have a fairly large confidential component. And I think the minutes of these are appropriate and reflect that committee meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Chamberlain. Councillor Lowe? No. Any other councillors? Councillor Chamberlain? I put the motion. All those in favour? Councillor Simpendorfer, Councillor Lowe, Councillor Hall, Councillor Mildren, Councillor Chamberlain, Councillor Quilty. Those against? Councillor Poulton. The motion is carried. The next item on the agenda is 8.11, Management and Operations of the Wodonga Aquatics and Leisure Facilities. Do I have a motion, please? The matter. Councillor Hall moved as the recommendation.
Yes, I move as recommended.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder, please? Councillor Lowe. Councillor Hall.
This is just a tender evaluation, and it's come back up to us to make a decision on. A line were given the better result out of it, although it was very close. I think that they've probably been doing a good job in managing our pools, and I just I support the motion to give them the contract going forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Lowe. Councillor Lowe, reserve. Other councillors? Councillor Chamberlain.
Yeah, I'll be supporting this tonight, although I'm a little disappointed that we didn't get more tenders, but possibly reflective of the post-COVID environment where it's fairly limited to get a number of people to get together and tender for these things. Prior to that, there was a number of other municipalities, councils and whatever that may have put a tender up and they've not seen it forth to do so. So at this stage, I'll be supporting this motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Chamberlain. Other councillors? Councillor Quilty.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I must say I and my family are regular users of Wodonga Leisure Centre, managed as one of the facilities managed by the group, Aligned Leisure. And I must respectfully disagree with Councillor Hall. I would like, not that it's all horrible, let's say not great, not terrible, but I would with a hand on my heart, I would like to see better management of this aquatic facility. We had this discussion some time ago, and were told that due to several COVID years and closures, the management and the attendance of the facility has suffered, and were reassured that it will pick up and will get better. I don't think this facility is having its best days at the moment, and while it is a pity that we haven't seen more tenders, and I'm sure that the staff have conducted appropriate tender process, I would like to express the hope that with funds allocated in the budget to improvement of the facility and continuous combined efforts of this council and the management, we will achieve better results for our community. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Coulty. Other councillors? Councillor Poulton?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just noting the recommendation there, just around the sensitivities in relation to Albury Council that have a meeting still to come. But yeah, the recommendation as moved will receive my support. Just worth noting the effort put in by our staff in trying to find the most efficient way possible to run our aquatic facilities, and particularly through this tender process, and also I'd say over past experiences, some of those user concerns and things have been front of mind for the staff, I'm sure, when constructing these agreements and working relationships. So just well done to the appropriate officers through you, Mr. Mayor and Mr. CEO. Thank you. It will receive my support.
Thank you, Councillor Poulton. Other councillors? I'd just like to reiterate what Councillor Poulton said. This is a fairly major tender, circa 5 million, which there's an enormous amount of work and coordination and cross-border efforts, and the staff that get involved in this sort of stuff have to be on their toes for everything that they do in first putting together the tender documentation, and then secondly doing the evaluation process, which requires quite a bit of attention and some strong expertise. So I think thank you to our staff who have worked on this. This is important for Wodonga, well indeed important for Albury Wodonga. So well done and thank you. Councillor Lowe, you're reserved.
Yeah, thank you. I echo my fellow councillors' words in thanking the staff for putting this together. It's a big body of work, and there would have been lots of lessons learnt from when the changeover from the Y happened to a line. There was teething problems in there, but all those things, as I think Councillor Poulton said during COVID, etc., that you take those into consideration when you start assessing new tenders and new contracts and new KPIs that would be built into this. And I think I just want to highlight, yeah, it's one of the bigger investments us as a council will make as far as a tender goes. But as we did last time, we joined forces with Albury Council to get that scale of economy. So it's a joint procurement, even though they're separate contracts. But it's a matter of working together to achieve the best outcome for communities on both sides of the border financially. So I'll be voting in favour of this tender tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Lowe. Councillor Hall to close. Okay, nothing to add that. I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Oh, sorry. That was remiss. Sorry. Carried. Sorry, in favour. Councillor Poulton, Councillor Chamberlain, Councillor Mildren, Councillor Hall, Councillor Lowe, Councillor Simpendorf. For those against, Councillor Quilty. The motion is carried. Apologies, Councillor Coulty. Reports for noting, there are none. reports for information. 10.1, the record of councillor meetings. 10.2, the decisions register. Councillor Poulton.
I know, just with the decisions register on page 790 of 806, just I know we've got our updates there and our statuses. Are we anytime soon getting the Jacob Group of Companies matter from April 21 or the on-road safety, cycling safety program from December 21 completed? That's a question to the CEO, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Poulton. Officer Schultz.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, the employment land strategy document is nearing completion to be workshop back with the councillors. Councillors will recall there was a presentation given, I think it was the back end of last year or earlier this year. With respect to the on-road cycle lanes, I wish I could have something positive to say about that particular project. We are still waiting for Department of Transport and Planning to undertake their assessment of the works that they did in Pier Street. And the outcomes or the learnings from that, I'm quite certain will be implemented in the proposals for Elgin Boulevard. But we are still waiting progress on that particular matter, Councillor.
Thank you, Officer Schultz. No other matters on the decisions register? Notices of motion, there are none. General business. Does any councillor have general business? Councillor Chamberlain.
Just wanted to note a couple of events that happened over the weekend. One that I couldn't attend, which was the Wodonga show. Great to see it back. A bit disappointed that I couldn't be there. And what has been and has turned into a massive event in this area, which is just fantastic for Albury and Wodonga, which is the Chryslers on the Murray event. I think 930 exhibitors, given the cost of living pressures and a whole heap of other things. Just a magnificent event and a great outcome for Albury and Wodonga, to be honest. And the committee have noted what a great area that Gateway Lakes area is for that sort of event. It was really, really good to see. And I know there was a little bit of impromptu cruising down Wodonga Place in Albury, but from all reports, they didn't cause any troubles and they didn't cause any dramas, and I think that's a really good pat on the back for the people who were actually attending the event. So, thank you.
Thank you. General business, other councillors? No, moving right along. There being no urgent business, that brings us to confidential. Can I have a motion to move into confidential, please? Councillor Chamberlain, Councillor Hall. I put that motion. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thanks. Welcome back after a very long and extended confidential session. Councillors, can I have a motion to adopt the in-camera recommendations, please? Councillor Poulton, Councillor Chamberlain. Councillor Poulton, do you wish to make any comment? Councillor Chamberlain? I put the motion. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Mr. CEO, would you care to read out the public recommendation or public results, please?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. In relation to item 14.2, considerations in respect to the FBDC meeting resolution of the 26th of February 2024 for preparation of the 24-25 draft budget. The public component of the recommendation is councillors note the information provided by the CEO on internal changes required to implement the reduction in the operational budget and endorse the CEO's ability to act under the provisions of the Local Government Act and endorse the actions, changes to the services and timing as outlined in the report. In relation to item 15.1, proposed sale of land at Logic, lot 249 Logic Boulevard. The public component of the resolution is 1, the subject to a heads of agreement being entered into within 21 days of this resolution and generally in accordance with the key terms below, Wodonga Council gives notice under section 114 of the Local Government Act 2020 that it intends to sell the land parcels described as lot 249 located adjacent to Logic Boulevard, Baxter Whelan's Road, Barnawatha North. The Council receives the further report upon completion of the public consultation period to determine whether the proceeds of sale or not. The key terms of the heads agreement shall generally be as follows. Price, the price purchase will be 1.5 million exclusive of GST based on a land area of 1.5 hectares. Deposit, a 10% deposit of 150,000 exclusive of GST will be payable on the day of sale. Settlement, settlement shall be within 6 months of obtaining a planning permit. Approvals, the purchaser will be responsible for attaining a planning permit required for the use of the development of the site for a manufacturing and storage facility. Section 173 agreement, as a condition of the contract of sale, the council will require the purchaser to enter into a section 173 agreement immediately before settlement to be registered on the title to the property, requiring the purchaser to, at a high level, develop the property for manufacturing and storage facilities. If the purchaser does not comply with these conditions set out into the section 173 agreement, council may require a retransfer of the property at the lesser of A, market value at the time of the retransfer, or B, 90% of the price paid by the purchaser. Other conditions will be works. Council will conform with the nature and extent of any works associated with the proposed land sale and the associated costs of such works as soon as such information is known, and other, the contract will contain such other conditions appropriate for the sale of the property or which are reasonably required by the council. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. CEO. Given that tonight's been a very long and arduous session and the way we've conducted things, I'd like to congratulate councillors on the way we dealt with some very testing issues. And I would like to say thank you to the staff that have put the agenda together for this very testing meeting. And I close the meeting at 9:27.